Okay, guys, it's time for another podcast. Welcome back to Six Ass Society, stuff you won't remember next week. I've been away for a minute because I had to do some stuff in Holland. Go check out Amsterdam 2. It's going to be a great scene to see me do something exciting in the movie right there in the beginning. So, stuff you won't remember next week. As we said, where the bazaar is business as usual and political promises are as sticky as the green. In this episode, we've got a lineup that swings from legal marijuana promises to conquer controversies and even diving into the infamous story of Lorena Bobbit. Remember Lorena Bobbit? First, we're digging into the murky world of presidential politics, marijuana legalization, and a candidate who's hoping to smoke out the black vote. I know. This is the show with no politics, no wars, no mainstream news, but I had to make an exception just this once. Talking about Kamala Harris, or whatever you decide to put the emphasis, and her bold or desperate, depending on who you ask, move to win over black male voters by promising to legalize weed and offer loans. Yeah, let's get this started. Let's get it going.
Oh, Lord, I'm so bored. Oh, Lord, I'm so bored.
All right, so here's the scoop. Vice President Kamala Harris, who is now running for president, is pledging to legalize marijuana in a bid to win over black male voters. The irony, she's got quite the track record when it comes to weed, overseeing more than 1,900 marijuana convictions back in her days as San Francisco District Attorney. And now she's out here telling us she's the hero who's going to save us from the very laws she's enforced. Isn't it funny how life works? Now, it's almost like she's saying, forget the fact that I once locked people up for it. I'm your savior now. But hey, she's not alone in this weed-friendly approach. Donald Trump also getting in on the action, saying he supports state-by-state legislation and endorsed Florida's marijuana legalization initiative. In his words, people shouldn't be jailed for using the drug, which is a pretty progressive stance for a guy who made lock her up a rallying cry. Now, Trump didn't exactly go all in on legalization during his time in office, but he did pardon 7 people serving life sentences for marijuana on his last day. How do you get a life sentence for marijuana? It's a plant that grows out of the ground. Anyway, meanwhile, Joe Biden, who as a senator was instrumental in crafting some of the nation's toughest drug laws, is still playing catch up. He's yet to release the roughly 2,700 federal inmates serving time for weed-related crimes, despite promising to free them during his 2020 campaign. Who would have thought that a politician would have told a lie to get elected? Now, here comes Kamala with the "I'm gonna make it all better" promises. But black voters are giving her the side eye, especially black men, who've seen politicians make all kinds of pledges only to fall back on them after Election Day. Joe Biden. Plus, her history with marijuana has some pretty embarrassing moments, like that infamous interview with Charlemagne the God, where she claimed to have smoked weed while listening to Tupac and Snoop Dogg in college. Just one problem. She graduated college in 1986, while Tupac didn't drop his first album until 1991, and Snoop Dogg came out in 1993. Not exactly a classic case of stoner memory. Am I right or am I right? 'Cause I'm a liar! Yeah, I'm a liar! And let's not forget the backlash from her own family. Her Jamaican father was not impressed when she leaned into that stereotype, calling her comments a travesty and saying his grandmothers would be turning over in their graves. Ouch. When even your dad is like, hey, don't drag our family into this, maybe it's time to rethink your approach. Anyway, Here's where it gets even stickier. Harris is trying to position herself as a champion for marijuana legalization, but her record shows a history of being tough on crime. It's like she wants to wipe the slate clean by just saying, let's light one up and forget about the past. Some folks are not buying it. As we said, black men especially. So she's offering up legalization and loans as if it's a political buy one, get one deal. But many see it as an insult and thinly veiled attempt to buy the vote rather than earn it. All right, I'm not going to, I don't even care. So anyway, Trump's got his own strategy, backing state level legislation initiatives, trying to frame himself as the common sense option in this debate. But here's the thing. We are really, are we really buying into this? It's like a sudden wokeness on weed, or is this just a sign of the times? I mean, which is it? Weed has become mainstream and politicians are playing catch up. It's just wild that it's Kamala who's trying to lead the charge. She's got criminal convictions. Anyway, so what's the real takeaway here? When it comes to marijuana, politics, it seems like everyone's trying to jump on the bandwagon. But when you dig deeper, it's not just about legalizing a plant. It's about reckoning with a system that's criminalized it for decades. So will black voters fall for Kamala's promises, or will the baggage of her past weigh her down? Time will tell. But for now, we'll just sit back and watch the smoke clear. So what do you think? Is Kamala lighting up the right path or just blowing smoke? Hit us up with your thoughts, because in politics, the real high isn't just the weed. It's seeing who's buying what you're selling. To me, this stinks of desperation, not Pineapple Express. What if Trump was like, I know what you people like to do. Get high and make risky decisions like buying Bitcoin, so I'm going to make it happen for black men in America. You guys should be outraged, but I don't talk about politics on this podcast, so I digress, because I can't. I did something on TikTok a few weeks ago, and it was almost word for word, line for line, bar for bar, something that a Democrat politician said about Kamala's background and should it affect your decision to vote for her because her family owning slaves. The only thing I added was the fact that I said I don't even live in the States anymore, so I don't really have a dog in this fight or a horse in this race, whatever this saying is. And people jumped all over. This is a false equivalency and whatever, because I was talking about people tearing down the statues, right? And the people that were having these statues torn down of them were people that owned slaves. So these people were bad and evil. And then certain segments of the population were tearing down these statues and not supporting this. So what is the difference between those people owning slaves and her family owning slaves and making their fortune and their money from not only owning slaves, they were slave traders. They owned the people and sold them. They were the Walmarts of fucking black people. I shouldn't have swore, but it's just frustrating that people can't see this as a similar thing. And they're saying that it's not. But anyway, I finally did something right on TikTok, and that's why I don't use it, because it's just silly to me. And anyway, I'm rambling. So let's get on to the next section. Let's talk about conkers. All right. So we're going to move on to a little slice of life from my own backyard, almost literally. This year's World Conker Championships took place right here in Southwick, I would say, and they would say something else in England. Northamptonshire. It's really not. It was in Oundle. It was right down the road. But anyway, let's just say things got interesting. The competition, which has been around since 1965 and raised a cool $500,000 for charity, saw an 82-year-old veteran player, David Jenkins, finally take the crown after competing for nearly 50 years. But that wasn't just any victory. It's a win shrouded in controversy. Yes, the World Conker Championships controversy. It's the silliest thing I think I've ever said. So, for my American friends that might not know what a conker is, conkers is a traditional kids game in Great Britain and Ireland, and they use these seeds of horse chestnut trees. The name conker is also applied to the seed, and to the tree itself. So the game is played by two players, each with a conker threaded with a piece of string. They take turns striking each other's conker until the conker breaks. Right? Exciting stuff. What are you going to do back when there's, castles and knights and stuff? You put strings in conkers. And anyway, so Jenkins, also known as King Conker, pulled off some seriously impressive wins, shattering opponents' conkers in a single hit. Now, conkers aren't supposed to disintegrate on impact. So when his rival Alistair Alistair Johnson Ferguson's nut exploded into pieces, the suspicions started brewing. So after the match, a steel conker painted brown was found in his pocket. That's right. I'm probably spiking over here. It turned down. I'm a little excited today. Conker championship chat, guys. It's hard to. I live in the country now. These are the exciting times of our lives out here in the country. You want quiet? You gotta play with conkers. Anyway, so this brown painted conker was found in Jenkins' pocket, right? A steel conker. Like he was trying to sneak some medieval weaponry into a kid's game. Jenkins claims the steel conker was purely for humor value and that he never actually used it during the matches. He even tossed a different conker into the crowd after the game, but you've got to admit the timing is a bit sus, my friend. So the tournament organizers are investigating, and video evidence suggests no foul play. Though let's be honest, if you're a judge watching an 82-year-old with almost 50 years of conker experience, you might be a little biased towards giving him the benefit of the doubt. The funny part of this to me, or one of, because it's on multiple levels of humor, was watching Kay Burley on Sky News taking it so seriously that she's so serious. It's like she's like, and in breaking conker news. It sounds like this is like the new, a global outbreak pandemic or a war or something. She never smiles, but anyway, it's just how serious they're taking it. King Conker, I digress. I gotta shut up. I'm talking too much. Great coffee. King Conker or King Conker All right. King Conker or King Con Artist? That's the question here. To add a bit more drama, as if we didn't have enough already, Jenkins didn't win the overall title. That went to Kelsey somebody whose name I can't pronounce. Bonsbach, I think. A women's champion who only took up the game last year. Could you imagine having been playing this game for 50 years? You're 82 years old. You never won. And then some woman comes in and she just wins on her first time playing. Anyway, talk about a plot twist, right? Whether you see Jenkins' steel conker as an innocent prop or a potential cheat, it definitely added a little spice to what would otherwise be a pretty wholesome event. Wholesome, boring, whatever. Whatever you guys get entertained by. There's a wife-carrying competition that goes on here, and if you know the history of it, and I see that you guys are doing it in America now. I saw in the news when I was researching this. It's not good. It's not a good thing to be doing. Why it took place was not good. And they do a cheese race here, which is crazy. Like, people almost die. They roll these big wheels of cheese down the hill, and people chase it, and people are tumbling, and it's worse than running with the bulls. Over here in Europe, they do some wild stuff, guys. It's really interesting. Anyway, we're gonna move on. We're not talking about World Conker Championships. I can't handle any more scandal. Scandal at the World Conker. Anyway, before we move on, shout out to Shuckburg Arms for hosting this event this year. You really never know what kind of drama you'll get when you'll mix tradition, charity, and a bit of eccentric competition. Next story. Finally, we're closing this episode with a story that's as jaw-dropping today as it was, 30 years ago, about 30 years ago. Yeah, it's time to revisit the infamous case of Lorena Bobbit. Bobbit, who became a household name after she cut off her husband's penis back in 1993. With a new ITV documentary airing this week called I Cut Off His Penis, the truth behind the headlines. I can't take this world anymore. It's just too much. Lorena is opening up about what drove her to commit the act and how her life has changed since then. How many times does she need to open up about this? She keeps coming out trying to bring awareness, and this 30 years ago. You've told your story endless times. No one cares anymore. This is commentary. Back to the podcast. The documentary isn't just a rehash of salacious details. It actually explores the deeper issues of domestic violence and sexual abuse that Lorena says pushed her to the brink. Her attorney argued that she was temporarily insane from years of physical and sexual abuse by her husband, John Wayne Bobbit, who was later acquitted of marital sexual assault charges. The story takes viewers back to the fateful night from the kitchen where she grabbed the knife, to the car ride where she tossed his severed organ out the window, and the surgeons who managed to reattach it after 9.5 hours. Now, while Lorena was found not guilty by reasons of temporary insanity, I think that was the first time I had ever heard that term as a defense. She was still left to navigate the media circus and the stigma that came with her actions. These days, she goes by Lorena Gallo. She has a new family and even started the Lorena Gallo Foundation to help domestic violence survivors. Meanwhile, John Wayne Bobbit, well, he's had some rough times of his own, so it's not been smooth sailing for him, but that's part of our journey as humans, right? He's lost all 10 of his toes due to a medical condition earlier this year. And I think he even had cancer. So that's a story with lasting consequences on all fronts. The documentary isn't shying away from asking the tough questions either. Why do these extreme acts happen in the first place, and what kind of social conditions make them possible? Societal conditions, actually, not social. It's a heavy story with deep roots, but it's one that still resonates after all these years. So if you've ever wondered what happened after the headlines faded, this documentary might just be the deeper dive you didn't know you needed. I don't know why all these stories are coming out. I think these streaming platforms are looking for a lot of content, because isn't there, somebody asked me just the other day, when I was in Holland, we were sitting in someone's house because we were filming on the canal, and my co-star, she says, are you watching this special on Netflix, whatever it's called? And it's the Menendez brothers. The Menendez brothers? That was from before this time, I think. And that's crazy, too, because that's another dead story. These guys have been in prison for killing their parents over money, we think. I don't remember. It was so long ago. But now they've made a Netflix series out of it. So now these guys are in the news, and they're... Anyway, whatever. That wraps up this episode. Sick Sass Society stuff. You won't remember next week. You won't remember any of this. I had to do the politics, guys, because it's just everywhere. And it's been driving me crazy because I was watching a special on genealogy about Kamala Harris. And, I mean, it was a long series, and a lot of the stuff is crazy. Now, the person that's delivering the message is a bit controversial, so some people don't like it, which I get, but you have to sometimes separate the message from the messenger, because when I'm seeing birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, interviews, people coming out saying they're in the family, the dad's not knowing, friends of the dad or relatives not knowing his mom, just weird stuff. And it's just weird stuff. I'm not here to say anything because I don't want anybody coming after me. It's like they're going to come after this person that's doing the special. So anyway, we're going to wrap up this episode from the world of conquer cheats and weed politics to the dark side of true crime. We've taken you on a wild ride today, but be sure to follow us for more tales of the strange, the scandalous, and the downright absurd. Until next time, keep questioning everything. And if you're going to compete in conkers, make sure your nuts aren't made of metal.